Good evening, everyone. Welcome into the Nittany Lion Sports Report. It's weekly here on Bob Long Sports, simulcast through our partners at the Small Player Big Play app. So happy to be alongside. So disappointed in the result, certainly, if you're a Nittany Lion football fan. You've come here to us, presumably, to express those emotions a little bit. We'll hopefully be able to do that vicariously for you. We're going to bring in Tyler Gehlhaus now. Tyler, tough one for the Nittany Lions. Really a historic game in many ways, an Indiana program that hadn't had a win over a ranked opponent in a very, very long time. It was a program that was kind of coming, and you had the sense was going to continue to press some really good football teams. We'll get into this. I wouldn't say it was their best effort, but a win nonetheless against a ranked team, and they're off and running. Now up into the top 25 and ahead of the Nittany Lions. Tough loss for Penn State. Tough way to go here as Ohio State comes up next week, but we got a lot to talk about before we get on to the Buckeyes.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't the start that everybody had in mind, especially Penn State fans waiting, 12 months, or I should say 10 months since the Cotton Bowl performance, which had a lot of hope coming into this 2020 season. We talked about, players that they lost for different reasons, Micah Parsons, Jair Brown. Now it appears that Noah Kane will be out for the season as well. So not only did Penn State get off on the wrong foot, Noah Kane, no pun intended, apparently has a leg injury that he only played a couple of plays in the first quarter against Indiana, and now all of a sudden Penn State's down to their third-string running back, is now the first stringer, and Devyn Ford. We'll talk about him a little bit later, followed by two true freshmen, both from the state of Florida. Saw them both a little bit on Saturday. Kevon Lee, the bigger back, number 24, and then Keziah Holmes, number 26, more of a scat back, kind of lightning in a bottle, can take it the distance at any time. But that's where we are right now. Definitely disappointing start. For a lot of reasons, which we'll get into, but you can't think about it too much because now they have Ohio State coming into an empty Beaver Stadium Saturday night.
Right, no doubt about it. The whiteout without all the fans, of course. And let's go back to the Indiana game, though. And the first things first, he was short. Michael Penix was short on the 2-point conversion. Certainly, if you're watching this, you most likely watched the game. But Penn State goes into overtime against Indiana, scores. Kicks the extra point. Indiana comes down, scores, elects to go for the 2-point conversion, which the call I like. I can't say I disagree with the call. Penix dives towards the pylon, slow it down. The ball hits out of bounds, and it sure looked like the ball compressed against the turf before the pylon compressed. And, he was short. The vast majority of the country does agree with us. The one argument that I did hear that I guess if true would be the only way that he could possibly have been in was that it wasn't hitting the pylon before it hit the ground out of bounds. It's did it break the plane rather than the pylon. Now the pylon along the sideline is at the very beginning of where the plane is. So the tip just has to cross the very, very edge of the white paint. And I think the argument there was, yeah, the butt end of the football, it was at a diagonal angle. The butt end hits out of bounds. And right before that point, momentarily before, the inside of the football was in play and across the white line before it hit the pylon. Now, that's physically impossible as far as I'm concerned because I stopped it at one of 3 frames. So I stopped it at the frame as it was hitting the turf momentarily, and then 2 frames later where it first contacted the pylon. And Tyler, what happened was in frame 3, which is, again, fractions of a second different, it was the right edge of the football that was hitting the middle of the pylon. And so what that tells me, physically, physics involved, right, is that at no time in the frames leading up to that was any part of that football inside the pylon and thereby breaking the plane to the right as the camera showed it at that most popular angle. Just wasn't the case. So that, I think that was the point from some folks, hey, you can't overturn. it was the wrong call. And at no time was that football inside the pylon. And I think just your eyes tell you that when that ball hit the ground, the ball hadn't hit the pylon. So I think those are the two arguments, and we've dispelled the both of them.
Sure, and I think the one view, I'm not sure if I talked to you about the view or not, but it was actually from the end zone, like up top coming down. And you could tell when the ball was on the ground, and I don't think they had this view when they were reviewing the play, but the ball was clearly out of bounds on the ground, and it was not crossing the plane at all. So really,
it wasn't inside the pylon
exactly
at all.
So I mean, again, the game should have never come down to this. And we're going to go on and on about it, but I think it's one of those things that the call in the field, I don't. It took them about 10 minutes to go over this play. It felt like, at least, and I kept saying, I think they're going to overturn it because I think that's the right call. But at the same time, the call in the field was good, and I think it's one of those things. It's hard to overturn, and I don't necessarily. But that is how they view replays. They have to have complete, inconclusive video evidence.
Yeah,
because they did say the play stands as called. It was not confirmed, which doesn't matter because it's still the same ending.
Listen, it's a difference between a game being won and lost, and I think you got to come up with a decision there. I get it. I get the conclusiveness of it, but you got to come up with a call.
And I think it's funny.
If there was no call on the field, right? Like if they just
said
went to replay,
no call,
what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue if they said, well, I think they have to make a call for one. I think that there has to be a call made, but if they didn't make a call.
Green Bay, Seattle replacement refs, one official is calling an interception,
it was
the
at
other
that
is
Hail
calling
Mary,
a touchdown, right? So you don't have a call.
True.
What's the call?
I mean, I truly believe in that case they say no 2-point conversion because there was no call in the field. I think that they were trying to I just don't think they had conclusive evidence, but I disagree with it because I think we saw angles where it was like, okay, the ball's down and out of bounds. And
Ball's
there's
down,
no way
out of bounds. The front tip was not inside the pylon. It wasn't touching the pylon, and thereby it did not break the plane.
No, I totally. I mean, it was really. It's still tough to swallow, but again, I don't think it should have come down to that. There were some other calls that I completely disagreed with. We can get to that a little bit if you'd like, but it was just a nightmare start, really, for this season for Penn State, and to come down to a play. I mean, it was a very fitting ending to that weird game. That's all. I mean, that's really all I have in terms of that because that was one of the most bizarre games ever, I feel like. And the ending and it's just kind of going with the 2020 theme, really.
Sure. Yeah. So that's the overtime. Indiana gets the benefit of the call. DraftKings refunding all the.
So that's I did want to bring that up, that we're talking about, it really wasn't a touchdown. Well, yeah, DraftKings is refunding bettors that bet on Penn State to win money line, which means outright, no cover, just as long as they win. And has that ever been done before? I don't know. I mean, that's
not a huge gambler. We're not a gambling show, but
that's pretty crazy that they went to that extreme.
Yeah.
And that's kind of telling you something too. So.
Oh, I think so. I think there's absolutely something to that. Before we get on to the rest here, we do have a good show coming your way here tonight. Seamus Morgan of the Epilepsy Foundation here in Philadelphia. He's going to be our guest picker. He's going to tell us about all the great things going on with the Epilepsy Foundation. Hope you'll hang on with us for that. Bruce Badgley from Small Player Big Play. He's got a good start after last week, so but not unbeatable. And I think guest pickers over the course of the year, we're going to keep that same challenge as we had last year. The race to see who wins it all and who has the best 6-game record as a guest picker. Of course, you and I will have our own little game going ourselves. 5-1, 3-3, but this is how it started last year, and you came on strong, so you got me right where you want me. But we're excited for that, and we'll have another Blitz segment where we go to the whiteboard. We're going to break down certain things, and today it's going to be the sort of the zone and the two tight end option, really the base package for all RPOs that Penn State has utilized in Game 1 under Kirk Ciarrocca, and how it is a little bit different than what we said at Minnesota. Right, last week, if you happen to catch our blitz where we go to the whiteboard and break things down, like I said, we talked a little bit about two tight ends, and that's a little bit different than what we saw under Ricky Ronnie. that's something we're going to focus on here today. So stay tuned for that. But back to this Indiana game. End of regulation. Shaka Toney becomes a machine and gets into the backfield
kind of like 2 years
reckless
ago out
abandon.
there in the fourth quarter.
No doubt about it. He is absolutely phenomenal when you pin his ears back. And this is, by the way, since he started getting consistent snaps for Penn State. He was always that third down rush edger. It's still the best part of his game, but he's gotten much more disciplined from a gap perspective.
Bigger, too.
A bigger, better run stopper, etc. But, man, he is still such a good defensive end.
He took over when Penn State went up 21-20 after that long touchdown from Clifford to Dotson. Which, by the way, I would have liked to have seen more downfield shots earlier and often because they were successful. I mean, really, they were 2 for 2. They went from Clifford to Dotson, and before that, they went Clifford to Parker Washington. He almost reeled in the catch. It actually pass interference, not the spot of the ball, the foul, but 15-yard penalty. But they were really the only 2 shots they took the whole day, and they were successful on both, you could argue. But, after that touchdown, I think, about 2 minutes left and change, and Shaka Toney does his thing that he does in the fourth quarter in Bloomington. It seems like every time we're there, 2 sacks, and then he had a quarterback rush where Penix had to throw it away, and then, obviously on fourth down, he throws up a heave. Lamont Wade lays out the Indiana receiver, incomplete. They did review it for targeting, which I thought was really strange. And I was talking about this during the game because I didn't know that you could review a play for targeting if there was no foul. And I still don't know. Okay.
Yep.
And I just thought that was weird. It didn't really look like, I think you may, if it was the same one I'm thinking of, that he was defenseless.
He was a defenseless.
He was
receiver.
Defenseless, but he did get him
below the shoulders.
Yeah, so it was a good no call. And then, I guess you could say the rest is kind of history after that. I mean, up 21-20, we're thinking, okay,
21-20.
This is good. This is right where we want them, right?
1st and 10 at about the 14-yard line.
13-yard line,
So you can get a first down without getting a touchdown. 1:45, did I say that already? Indiana 1 timeout. So let's do a little quick math, right? 40 seconds in between each play. After a first down, the clock does stop momentarily for them to reset the chains, and given that they dropped the chains and just put the marker on it because it's goal to go, that wouldn't be for very long. So if you get a first down inbounds, the game is over. Indiana cannot stop the clock enough nor have enough downs to make you do anything other than kneel it on 3rd down and run out the rest of the clock. The Red Sea opens up. Devyn Ford walks into the end zone. The second he gets in the end zone, he kind of looks around gingerly, realizing I may have made a mistake. After the game, James Franklin says, this is something we talked about in practice and in the huddle during the game. And so, people blaming James Franklin. Somehow the message didn't get through. I don't know whose fault it is, but we can start with the fact that this game was over. And I hate to put it that bluntly, Tyler, and I get it. I mean, Devyn Ford is a good kid by all accounts. He's working hard. He was thrust into a situation where he was going to be the 3rd-string guy, and now he's the 1st-string guy. So I get all of that. However, in a vacuum, if Devyn Ford doesn't go into the end zone, Penn State wins the football game. And we have to, again, delineate between me being too hard and people being too hard on the kid. Because, listen, we're not saying the season's over and Devyn Ford should be cut. But what we are saying is that was a critical mistake at the most important point of the game that cost Penn State the game.
So my main question is we talked about how Devyn Ford, 3rd-string running back, normal circumstances, he's not even in the game at that point. I'm curious, in the huddle leading up to it, was it said, did the coaches get, in his face, one-on-one, do not score, do not score, do not score. They're going to let you score. Just go down before the end zone. Whatever you do, go down. I don't think we know. It was said that they told him not to score. But, again, you're dealing with a 3rd-string running back, and that's really not an excuse because these guys are all, good enough to be out there, but I just don't know how clearly the message was communicated.
It wasn't clear enough, clearly.
So I mean, I do have an issue with that. It shouldn't come down to that again. But But I'm also
But it
curious.
did.
I'm also
let's
curious
be really
why.
clear.
I don't know why they took the ball. All they really had to do. Another thing they could have done is taken 3 knees.
Not I go for it.
But you could have taken 3 knees. Okay, you probably. I didn't do the math. They had 1 timeout. You take 3 knees, so you had about 1:45 on the clock.
Yeah, so they're getting the ball back with 20 seconds left.
You kick a field goal, which, by the way, there were no gimmies with Jake Pinniger that game. So, you kick the field goal, a chip shot, a 30-yarder. Hopefully it goes in. You're up 24-20. You then kick off deep, touchback most likely with Stout. So then you're up 24-20 with about what do you want to say, 25 to 30 seconds. Indiana would have to go the distance.
Probably less, actually.
No timeouts, go the distance, have to score a touchdown. Mind you, they haven't moved the ball at all, really, all day on the Penn State defense. I mean, Penn State was setting them up with turnovers. I mean, they were unable to move the ball. Flash forward, obviously, they were able to move the ball in that last drive. We talked about the refs. That face mask call on Adisa Isaac, while it looked like a face mask full time, full speed, it wasn't. It really wasn't even that close. I mean, he got him up high, but got him around the shoulder pad. When he pulled him, Penix's head went like that. They thought it was a face mask. Would have been a 7-yard loss. Instead, it's a 15-yard gain. But I don't know. And then it gets even crazier because Indiana then scores. Obviously, they get the 2-point conversion. They kick off, right? They kick off, and it was a bad squib kick that went right to Daniel George, I believe, at like the 50-yard line. I was interested to hear your takes on Franklin going for the 57-yard field goal with 8 seconds left on a 3rd down or 2nd down. I forget what down it was. Instead of maybe trying to get a couple more yards without a timeout and making an easier kick for Jordan Stout at the end of regulation, because that kick was dead on and fell maybe less than a yard short. I mean, it looked good on TV.
Yep.
It was about that short. So.
All right, well, 2 things. I can't blow past the Devyn Ford thing because you talked about kneeling the football. I don't think that's the right decision either.
Or
I think the right decision is to run the football, try to get a 1st down, and win the game.
Okay. Now,
which they had done.
Sure.
It was the game was over. Penn State had won the football game.
What about keeping it in your quarterback's hands to run the football too? What about that idea?
I'd rather a running back, honestly.
Okay, because
I think they did the right thing. I think they did exactly the right thing. If he sits down at the 2-yard line, we're not talking about this. Penn State had already won the game.
I don't know if he had a brain fart or it wasn't communicated well enough, because when he
let me just ask the question, right? Like why are we diverting the topic at all? Why are people talking about kneeling the football? Because honestly, I think if you knelt the football 3 times, kicked the field goal, and gave it back to Indiana,
and then if Indiana scores, then you're like, well, you could have won the game.
Even if Indiana did not win the game, I would be saying, what the hell are they doing, kneeling the football and giving the ball back to Indiana? Why not try to get the 1st down and then sit down? That's what I would be saying.
To me, I don't. It's just something. I think, and I don't know this, but it just seems like it wasn't communicated strongly enough.
So that's
the problem I have with it.
That's it.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about kneeling the football.
Right.
We don't need to talk about.
That's the number one issue.
We just need to. We don't need to talk about who gets the ball, quarterback or running back. What we need to talk about is getting the 1st down and winning the football game. And by the way, none of this is directed at you. It's just some personal frustration. I mean, we don't need to talk about any of that stuff. The game was over.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like I said earlier, were they in the huddle and, Ford's kind of spacing out, not really paying attention. They're like, all right, we're not going to score. You're not going to score. And he's like, all right. Or did a coach go over and say, look, don't score, don't.
I like it.
I don't
Did somebody get in his
That's
face?
what I'm saying.
Right.
And of course, I think Pat Fryermuth said, he was told not to score. But, I mean, to what extent? You got to remember, this is your 3rd-string running back. He really hasn't played much meaningful ball for them. You just don't know where people's heads are. I mean, the psychological part of sports.
Yeah.
So, every time Devyn Ford has ever touched a football, his goal has been to score a touchdown. You know what I mean? From Pee Wee all the way up to now. And then, you're running, and it was obvious that they weren't trying to get him. I mean, they literally didn't move.
Yeah.
It almost looked like there was like a penalty and nobody played. But I just don't know, and I don't think it was hammered home enough. And if it was, and he still scored and wasn't thinking, then that's a whole nother issue.
Sure.
That has to be addressed.
I'm not being so hard on him to say, this is it, and cut Devyn Ford. However, like I said before, it was a critical mistake made at the reckoning point of the football game, and it was the difference in this specific instance between Penn State winning the game and losing the game. And maybe that's too blunt, but that is the situation. And there's really no other way to look at it, in my opinion.
And a funny thing is I think it may have been you texted me, "Betters rejoice." I'm not sure. Because
that was
Penn
me.
State was 6.5, 5.5 point underdogs. Oh, they're losing the whole game, and then all of a sudden they cover.
Yeah.
And the
statement still isn't wrong, by the way, because it's still the better's best
exactly.
chance.
Yeah. And then, obviously they went into overtime and still had a chance to actually still cover for those betters out there. But it was, and then people say, oh well, if Franklin would have gone for 2 to make it 29-20, then the game's over. But I have no problem with kicking the extra point because your defense was, awesome all day. Indiana got a couple breaks with the officials, like we said, on that face mask. A couple other guys did make plays, nice catches on that drive, and make them get the 2-point conversion to tie it up.
I totally agree. And you know what? They didn't, as it turns out.
Yeah.
In the eyes of physics and anybody watching the game.
Well, they got the 2-pointer to send it to overtime.
Oh. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah.
They did get that one.
Right. They got that one to make it 28-20, 28-28. And then obviously
that's the right call.
We know how overtime works. But in terms of...
By the way, who's to say that if Penn State went for 2 to try to go up 29-20 and didn't
and then Indiana scores and maybe...
Who's to say they don't go for 2
right.
and win it in regulation?
I mean, that's a great point. Did you want to talk any more about that?
Yeah, field goal,
okay.
Right? Because that was the other part of the thing you mentioned. I thought the decision to have him go out and kick the 57-yard field goal was a good one. I would have, in the first down and 10 play, from whatever yard line that would have been, 40-yard line, 41, I would have run something over the middle past the sticks. And the reason I would have done that,
a passing play.
A passing play past the first down marker and over the middle. And you may say, well, it's just where the ball went. No, that was one read and it was up, and there was nowhere else the ball was going than a lob on the sideline. But they had time to go down the middle on the first play to then get it past the sticks, clock stops, run up there, spike it. In college football, you cannot spike the ball with less than 3 seconds, or it's a 10-second runoff and the game's over.
And why is that?
I don't know, actually, because it's not the case in the NFL. Yeah. But it was what they had to contend with. So once that first ball is out of bounds, now you're down, I forget it was 9 or 10 seconds. Now you're not really in a position to run anything over the middle and try to go down.
So there were 8 seconds left before they decided to kick. And I think,
I think that's
also,
the right decision.
Well, and Clifford on that run only got 9 yards. If he gets that extra yard and the clock stops, I mean, that
great reminder.
You know what I mean? That could have certainly changed things as well. And no knock on Clifford's running ability.
We were texting about that.
Right.
Had to get a first down.
Right.
I texted you.
I don't have a problem with them kicking it either because, I mean, Stout does have the leg for that kind of kick. And he may have just not gotten all of it. It also went to the far right if you were kicking post, where I think it may have been a little closer because it was opposite hash.
Really, I think the bigger factor was it was into the wind.
It was into the wind, and it was. I actually thought it was good at first glance, and because it's hard to see the bottom of the goalpost. I just saw the ref's arms, no good. But while we're on that special teams topic, I thought special teams were extremely, extremely sloppy.
Pound for pound, it was the worst unit.
I mean,
on the field.
Last year they were very good, and usually when your special teams are good, you don't notice them. Mm-hmm. Almost like your offensive line.
Yep.
You don't really want to talk about your special teams that much if they're good because there shouldn't be any issues. Pinniger, at the end of the half there, missing that kick, 3 points.
Man, that's the difference between the NFL and college.
Yeah, it's why it's a harder kick in college with the hashes.
When you're not down the middle.
Right.
And you're closer. Like when you're closer.
The angle. Yeah, sure. But that was to me that could have been a turning point when Penn State recovered that fumble. And I don't know what Indiana's doing. I don't know why they just don't take a knee and go to the half.
Yeah.
I'm sure they will from now on.
That time I agree with the knee, by the way.
Yeah. But Penn State forced a fumble. 2 seconds left. Bring Pinniger out to make it 17-10. Hopefully, get some momentum. Dings it off the upright, and that's when you're like, oh my God, like
can't go right.
And then the punt. Where the two guys ran into each other on Penn State.
So that was let's talk about that. Marquise Wilson was blocking for too long. Dotson was calling him off, trying to call for a fair catch. Obviously, that didn't happen. They ran into each other. That also happened another time, and I forget if it was second or third quarter, where Dotson tried to come up and catch the football, but Marquise Wilson, I believe it was blocking for too long, didn't listen, didn't hear, and so Dotson had actually to peel away. And the ball took a 20-yard hop in Indiana's favor. So that's the second one. Lamont Wade screws around in the end zone on a kickoff and then runs directly sideways.
Right, and that led to an interception by Clifford.
Yeah,
I believe it did. Right. Either that. I thought he threw an interception after that because they had field position Indiana like inside the 15. He was looking for Freiermuth over the middle.
Yeah,
sailed. Picked off, and then it set him up. That's why Indiana didn't have that many yards.
That's very true. The other thing I'll say is, Jahan Dotson, the one where he fumbled, and there was the 20-minute review out of bounds there.
Right, that was the one that even though Penn State got the ball back, it was still a very sloppy day for the special teams.
Well, right, because later on that possession, there was an interception from Clifford.
Yeah, the screen pass.
Right. So the one thing I'll say is, hey, don't if you're a fan or following, don't tack on another turnover because it's not like there would have been another turnover. It was you traded turnovers. So special teams turnover was overturned, and then the offense turned it back over. Anyway, yes, special teams was as bad as I've ever seen for Penn State. Sean Clifford, he threw 2 interceptions. We talked about that. He, unfortunately, our most successful blitz segment ever last year was about the one where I was talking about Clifford's footwork and his vision and how many progressions he's going through, and then he's locking onto receivers and really siphoning off one half of the field. Unfortunately, Tyler, we're seeing more of that. It's still the case even with Kirk Shiraka's offense. Yeah. And specifically today, the problem I saw, it's 1, maybe 2 targets, and then it's head down.
And run.
Which
he's a very capable runner.
That's fine.
But that's not what we need him to do. And I mean, he's a quarterback.
He's a quarterback.
And last year he was getting banged up running, and it happened with McSorley towards the end of his career. That's not really what they want him doing. And
conversely, if your first 2 or 3 reads off the jump don't work, and you got to move out of the pocket, of course that's great. He doesn't keep his eyes down the field. He doesn't allow his receivers to break off their routes, find space.
He did, though, on the touchdown to Dotson.
Yeah, he did.
Because he stepped up, and the pocket was there, and he just waited for the play to develop. I don't know why he doesn't do it more often. He still, like you said, he still has the happy feet. He still looks scared back there. And, I mean, honestly, the pocket that the offensive line for pass protection I thought was fine. I wasn't that impressed with the run blocking, especially on 3rd and 2s. 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s, whatever it may be. I thought they should have been able to get a little bit more of a push. Mind you, they didn't have Noah Kane or Jair Brown obviously running the ball. We're not going to probably for the whole year. And Devyn Ford's not really that power back. But I thought that they should be able to get more push. But in terms of pass protection, there was no reason why he was running out of the pocket on some of those plays, and he's just making it tougher on him. But then you see the one that they score on in overtime when he's out of the pocket, running to his right, and sees Parker Washington in the back of the end zone on 3rd down.
Yeah,
that was a great play. But you don't need to always run out of the pocket if there's a good pocket. Just let the play develop. I thought, and you talked about it last week. I thought we were going to see a new and improved Sean Clifford this year. Maybe not yet. Maybe we'll never see it. But I thought, with the new coaching change with Shiraka, we would see a major difference. And honestly, Saturday felt like it was, things that we've seen last year all over again.
Oh, and I'm glad you brought that up and clarified, because this is not me or us saying that we're giving up on him. I do think he can be a big-time Big Ten quarterback with an extra year of eligibility, and assuming he's not a top-tier NFL talent after next year, we could be in the midst of 3 more years of this essentially here. So just something to keep in mind with Sean Clifford. I still think there's a lot of opportunity for him to develop. It's just the seismic steps that I think folks were expecting, or at least was needed in order to become a college football playoff contender, were not there as of Saturday. And again, that's not saying he needs to be cut or replaced or anything else, but it's just not there yet.
And if I may add to that, be careful what you wish for too. You might say he's not the guy, but there's not a guy on the roster right now that is the guy. They haven't recruited the position all that well.
Tell you what, if McCord was coming up from St. Joe's Prep, this would be a different discussion.
And obviously if Justin Fields stays committed, a couple years ago, you're looking at a totally different outcome right now.
Yeah.
But that's not reality, and reality is like you mentioned, Sean Clifford's here for at least 2 more years. I don't think he'd be leaving early to go pro. I don't see that. So he's here for at least this year and next year, and then has that 6th year available if he wants it, because this is a free year. And, hopefully it's the kind of thing that the offseason was just so chaotic and unusual, and he just hasn't gelled and maybe improved as soon as they thought he would. That maybe, hopefully it's what I'm saying is hopefully this isn't the finished Sean Clifford product. Hopefully we have a full regular offseason next year, spring football with the new coaches and all that, hopefully sooner rather than later, but can't give up on them yet.
Yeah. A couple other housekeeping items. Excuse me. Let's talk about the good stuff, because there was some good stuff. I thought the defensive secondary played pretty well. Joey Porter Jr. had a great blitz off the edge. I thought he played well in coverage. Explains a little bit as to why he was able to jump above Keaton Ellis and Marquise Wilson, first and foremost. Thought he had a great game. Tariq Castro-Fields was like a blanket out there. You see, he's a very physical corner, and I think sometimes with a different officiating crew, a couple more defensive holdings or pass interferences perhaps, but he was all over Indiana's receivers and Whop Phillier all day. Thought he played great.
Yeah, we didn't really hear Whop Phillier's name at all.
Yeah.
It was credit to the defense for sure.
Agreed. Kevon Lee came in and played very well as a running back in limited action. He kind of was handed the keys on one of the drives and really played well. I thought Devyn Ford, aside from the real gaffe at the end of the game, I thought he played well coming in a number of touches he wasn't expecting to get, the number 1 guy, and he's going to be doing that going forward. I have no problem with how Devyn Ford played over the course of the game. I thought Brenton Strange showed why he was above Zach Kuntz in the depth chart, and that was because of the 2 tight end sets that we saw a lot of from Kirk Sherrock.
More than I think anybody really anticipated.
More than I thought, more than Minnesota did
honestly,
last year.
And you know what was crazy? The first couple plays, Penn State was running 6 O-linemen.
Yep.
They brought Caden Wallace in, and they put him right in between Will Fries and C.J. Thorpe at the right guard, right tackle spot. They had 6 – I think they're calling it like their big boy package or something, but that's going to be interesting to see that and the 2 tight end sets if Penn State's going to continue to do that against certain opponents.
It's really interesting. So, again, not to bring up St. Joe's Prep twice in a broadcast, but I call a lot of high school football down this way, as a lot of our viewers know, and called LaSalle against St. Joe's Prep, and they have, we'll call it a big boy package as well. They'll do something like this on the sideline, and in goes in Nick Yagadich, who's a D1 talent on the defensive line, and then Josiah and Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the 2 brothers, to be 3 backs in the backfield along with their main back. And they throw 6 linemen out there, 2 fullbacks, and they just run it down your throat. And that's what that reminded me of when I saw that this weekend. You don't see it much, but I liked the look, generally speaking. So Brenton Strange, really strong blocking tight end. We saw Nick Bowers in a similar role last year, and he was rewarded with catches in big moments and had a great senior year, all things considered, as the second tight end. I think that's the type of year that Brenton Strange can be reasonably expected to have. So I thought those things were very good. Obviously, Shaka Toney was very good. One other piece of housekeeping, though, Tyler, because we talked a lot about the nickel defense, and we talked about who's going to be coming off the field. And I was just as surprised as you are, but they did kind of stay true to the true definition of a nickel. Your strong side linebacker comes off the field, and a nickel corner comes on in his place. Now,
so they were bringing Smith off, right? Which I don't like.
Yeah, I don't know
personally
why
don't.
they did
don't.
it. Here's why I think you do it, though, if I may. Jesse Luketa was sent off for targeting.
Second half.
So
he will miss the first half on Saturday night.
Yes, he will. And so I believe, and this is what I was trying to say last week when we were talking about the merits of both sides, I believe it's very important to have a middle linebacker or a signal caller or somebody that, again, can be the leader of that defense out there, even when you're bringing on an extra cornerback. And Brandon Smith's not calling plays. He does a lot of things extremely well. But if Luketa is already off the field, and it's do you bring Ellis Brooks or Brandon Smith off the field, you're going to want to leave a guy like Ellis Brooks out there because he's directing the defense, and Brandon Smith really does not. Now, there are also some times where it was, Dixon out there as well, along with Ellis Brooks in the star look. So that I didn't really understand, but that's sort of my thought. When we talked last week, I said, hey, listen, if you want to bring Ellis Brooks off the field because he's the least athletic of the three linebackers,
that's who I would be bringing off.
Then you slide Luketa as a guy who can get in there.
And because Luketa can call, he's
your backup
and
middle
linebacker.
And
he's a captain. He's got the leadership, like you said, call the shots type of thing on defense. I would roll with Luketa and Smith.
Yep.
Personally,
so
obviously this week maybe Dixon and Smith.
Right. So that's something to think about. To keep an eye on because it's an interesting personnel decision, and something I know we went back and forth. I thought on a pretty engaging segment last
another
week.
thing that I noticed, if I could add another positive from Saturday, would have been not only Shaka Toney but also Jason Owe.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting to the quarterback pressure. Almost every passing down, just wasn't able to really get home like Toney was. Certainly another positive. Penn State really does have a good pass rushing defensive ends, especially with that duo. And then you throw in Adisa Isaac as well for your third. Obviously, he had that big, we'll call it a penalty, definitely questionable penalty, face mask in the fourth quarter there. But another thing that caught my eye was Jair Brown, number 16, another Lackawanna guy, like Brisker. He's a third safety, and he was playing a lot of football.
Played a lot.
I'm not sure if something was up with Keaton Ellis. He did not really play much on defense, if at all. I know he got in on special teams.
I don't think he had a snap.
I don't know why. I thought he'd be a good one to throw in for the star package, especially with his coverage skills.
Did he play any snaps? The reason I asked this question,
right.
You probably know where I'm going.
There was. Are you talking about the false
positive?
I believe that was Cam Sullivan Brown. He was listed number 1 on the depth chart at receiver, and he was there.
Yep.
But he was not dressed, or I would guess not on the sideline. I don't know how that works.
Yep.
But they did say today that they did have one false positive, which happened to be him. Which I don't think that changes the game significantly. He's a nice player, but he's not a game breaker or anything like that.
Frankly, I think you want Daniel George to maneuver to that spot.
I think Daniel George did some nice things.
Yeah.
And he's a very good blocker. But, I don't know if Keaton Ellis, I heard that he was on some special teams, but no snaps on defense, which doesn't make sense to me.
You even saw Hardy,
and that's the thing. I would rather have Ellis or Wilson in at the star position over Hardy, or even bringing Wade down. I think Wade is a good player. He seems to always get a turnover. He got 2 the other day, fumble recovery and the interception. But he is a liability in man-to-man coverage. There's no doubt about it.
Totally agree.
And not to look ahead yet, obviously, but that's who we play Ohio State on Saturday. They're gonna target him, especially with their receivers. And I think our cornerbacks match up well. Our cornerbacks are very talented guys, but he is a liability man-to-man coverage.
Yep.
And, that's something Brent Pry's really going to have to think about moving forward, not only Saturday, but really the rest of the season.
Totally agree. We'll take a break here. That's a wrap-up of Indiana and beyond, talking personnel as we get ready for Penn State against Ohio State.
What does your character look like? Does it bounce back after each setback? Does it stand out by standing up? Does it make good on good intentions? Character is invisible until it's not. Only through action will the world know what it's made of, what you're made of. Find out how you can strengthen the character of your community alongside empowered veterans and families of the fallen at travismanion.org.
Welcome back inside the Nittany Lion Sports Report. Bob Long, Tyler Gehlhaus, and we return with our guest picker and our first one in person this year, by the way. Many more to come. But this is Seamus Morgan of the Epilepsy Foundation in Eastern Pennsylvania. Seamus, thanks so much for being here. We're excited to hear about your picks first and foremost. But before we get to that, we want to hear about the great things going on at the Epilepsy Foundation in your particular chapter. And I'll leave the floor to you because it's a great organization. I've had the opportunity to be involved with some of your events and couldn't think more highly of it. And so excited to have you on.
Oh, great. It's great to be here, Bob. Really excited to, put my picks in tonight and hopefully get some winners.
That's right.
But, I'm happy to be on and be able to talk about the Epilepsy Foundation Eastern Pennsylvania that I am very grateful for to be a part of the community and the people that we help serve. So definitely some personal connection and passion behind working with the foundation. For a while, I was working in the healthcare field and really enjoyed what I was doing. But I was diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 15. From going back to high school together and everything. You were around when I got diagnosed, but I know some of the day-to-day challenges of growing up with it and all. I've been fortunate the past 5 years that I've had my seizures controlled thanks to great doctors and support from family and everything. But more importantly, when the opportunity arises to be able to get involved and work for the Epilepsy Foundation Eastern Pennsylvania, I couldn't say no, and I was just very grateful to get involved with the organization. We do a lot of different services. It's our job to really help be advocates for the epilepsy community. More particularly, we help with the 18 counties in Eastern Pennsylvania and also parts of like Central and South Jersey as well too. All of our services are free of charge and everything too. We help from top to bottom, from young children up to older adults. We help with like referrals, like if people are looking for a new neurologist, we'll send them a referral list. If they're looking for certain community services, we have different resources that we can send people of other organizations or people that maybe they can get in touch with for a particular topic. We do Project School Alert trainings where we do free educational trainings for school teachers, school staff about what epilepsy is, about seizure recognition, first aid, education, how to create a environment for that child and to help the parents of the child feel comfortable. And we host a lot of educational conferences and events throughout the year.
That's great. Well, that's certainly a wonderful laundry list of the things that the foundation does. And so I think that an important question to ask is if somebody's listening to this and watching this right now and is thinking, man, this is a great organization. I'd love to get involved, donate, and everything that participate at the events. How would you recommend that they would do that?
Sure, absolutely. So there's a number of ways to really get involved. If people are unsure and have questions, they can always call our main office, which is 215-629-5003, or they can also send an email to our main email address, and we'll make sure to connect you with the right person, which is an abbreviation of our name. It's EFEPA at efepa.org, and we'll make sure we'll respond to that person. If somebody's interested in donating, they can either call us right at our main number, email us, or if they go to efepa.org/donate, they can donate right online if they would like as well too. Other great ways to get involved is, usually we have a lot of in-person events that we look for help for, but ways to get involved now, if people want to be involved in like our Camp Achieve, which is a children's camp that we have in August for children diagnosed with epilepsy ages 8 to 17. If people want to be a camp counselor, they can apply right online when our registration opens later in the year to be a camp counselor, which is a great and life-changing experience for a lot of our counselors that come year to year. Other ways is we have different events and different events and things going on throughout the entire year. So I'd really recommend like following our Instagram and our Facebook page, because we're constantly posting about new updates, and we host virtual conferences as well too, and different support groups that people are welcome to be involved with.
Great, yeah. And November is National Epilepsy Awareness Month. Could you tell us about that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of a big time of year for the epilepsy community. So November is National Epilepsy Awareness Month, and the color is purple for epilepsy awareness. So it's right around the corner. We're really excited to be out there and engaged in our community to be able to raise awareness this year and help people be aware about epilepsy and the effects, and really get the awareness out there and education. Different ways if people want to be involved, is we have different, if people, I recommend like following our Facebook page, our Twitter and Instagram, because we'll be posting different ways to be involved. We're doing like the Purple Lights initiative. If people have questions and are interested in getting involved with that, they can call us, email us. Like, for example, we have different places that'll be lighting purple lights up on November 7th. In the evening, the Ben Franklin Bridge will be lighting up purple, which we're really excited about. And the State Capitol building in Harrisburg from November 9th to the November 18th will be lit up purple. And then there's also the purple ribbon going on as well, too, where people will be hanging purple ribbons around their townships, city halls, or even around, like, just if people want to go around and hang purple ribbons or leave messages on sidewalks we've seen in their neighborhood, local community. Those are ways to get involved too. You don't have to do, big things like create like a huge event. Just going out and talking about it and educating one another and hanging a ribbon, and that kind of gets the conversation started. Like, oh, I see a purple ribbon, what does that mean? And that's really making a big difference, just kind of educating and letting people know one by one, and that's kind of how the message and the awareness gets spread.
Really good stuff. Really good stuff, Seamus. It's exciting to talk to you about all this. Exciting to have somebody like yourself with all that experience and really that directly connected both with your employment and really in your experiences as well. So I appreciate all that, and do encourage everybody watching the show here to get involved with the Epilepsy Foundation, Eastern Pennsylvania, or depending upon where you're watching this in the country, with your local chapter. Seamus, is there anything I missed? Anything related to the organization that you'd like to say?
I think we covered a lot of the main things. Just two more things. If people want to get involved or just learn more about what epilepsy is, what we do, again, please reach out to us. We'll make sure to connect you with a local resource coordinator or the right person. And then two other things that we have coming up. We have our free annual educational conference on November 7th, which is a Saturday. And it starts at 9 a.m., goes till 1. It's going to be held as a virtual webinar for everyone's safety and everything. But we're going to have a lot of health experts speaking on a few different topics. It's going to be really great and very informational. And we actually just had our Walk to End Epilepsy Month, where we had 2 purple pop-up tent parties where people drove by in their cars and helped raise awareness. People were decked out in purple. It was really amazing to see. If you go on our Facebook page, you can see pictures from the weekend events. But the website is actually still open. So if you're interested in donating, you can go to walktoendepilepsy.org. And if you're interested, please reach out to us. That's
great. Well, that's wonderful. And thanks for all the great work that you do. Thanks for coming on and telling the story with us. And we'll do everything we can to support you guys along the way. I love the organization and appreciate everything you do. Happy to support any organization that you're part of, Seamus. So,
absolutely, I appreciate it, Bob, and it's great to be here tonight.
Good. So we're gonna make some picks.
Let's do it.
He's gonna represent the Epilepsy Foundation, Eastern Pennsylvania here, and Tyler is he's the purveyor of all the picks. He picks them and then disseminates them, and then we pick them. So let's do it.
Kind of tough games to pick from this week. Maybe not the matchups are just kind of weak. And so, Seamus, what we'll do is we'll have 6 total games. All 5 of them, there will be one that's Penn State. That's a 6th game. But 5 of them, you'll pick the head-to-head winner. And then for the Penn State game, we'll give you the spread. And not like Bob said earlier, this is not a show for gambling or a gambling endorsed show, but you'll say, essentially what you think the score will be, and that'll say whether or not they cover the spread. So we're going to start first. We are going to start down in the SEC. Reigning national champion LSU travels to take on the Auburn Tigers.
Man, SEC is always known for high-scoring offense. I'm going to take LSU over Auburn 45-31.
I kind of like that pick. LSU lost some bad games early on. I think,
and they lost a lot of players from the championship team too.
And they lost a lot of players. Auburn, on the other hand, I thought they were going to be better this year, and I'm going to go with LSU. I was really not confident last week. It worked out for me then. I feel like this might be the wrong pick, but I'm actually going to stick with LSU this weekend.
This might be like the toughest one out of all of these. And I think I'm going to go LSU really just because of Coach O. I think they have the coaching matchup there. I don't really think too highly of Gus Malzahn as a coach at Auburn. I was expecting him to be better as well this year.
Yeah, Bo Nix.
And I've been watching them. I've been paying attention because Penn State plays them week 3 next year. So I'm already starting to see. We think, right. I'm already starting to see what Auburn has, and just haven't been impressed, really.
Yep.
And LSU hasn't played that well either, but I think, they have the coaching advantage and actually probably still the overall talent advantage as well. So I'll go Tigers. LSU Tigers, that is there. Next, we're going to go to the Big 12. A lot on the line here. Texas at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State undefeated in the driver's seat for the Big 12. Might be their only hope as a playoff contender. Texas at Oklahoma State.
Oh, that's a tough one. I definitely think Oklahoma State's the superior talent. So I'm going to stick with them, and I'm going to say 30-23 Oklahoma State.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Pokes as well. Never underestimate the last standing hope for a conference to make the college football playoffs. I am not assigning any nefarious behavior to anybody that may or may not be wearing stripes or in the commissioner's office. But never doubt the team that is the last one standing for their college football playoff bid, especially when they've been left out at times in the past. I like the Pokes.
I'm going to go Texas here. Underachieving yet again this year, Texas is, but I think they're due for that win after they really struggled, obviously, against TCU and lost to Oklahoma, which seems like it was forever ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. And it's just going to create more chaos for the Big 12. I like Texas in a close one, probably by a field goal. Next, this is one that I did not have on the radar until today. Wisconsin at Nebraska. And we're not smiling and laughing because, Wisconsin has their 1 and 2 stringers now have tested positive for COVID, and they're out for 3 weeks because obviously that's not funny, but because of now what it is, and they're on their fourth string quarterback going into this game. It's something obviously everybody's talked about that could come to fruition, and here we are after Wisconsin and Graham Martz, their new quarterback, put on a show on Friday night, and he tested positive twice for it since, and he's out for 21 days. So it's like all of a sudden Wisconsin, 4th string quarterback, because their original starter at the beginning of the year was out with injury, and now their 1st and 2nd current are out with COVID, so now they're on their 4th. I don't know. Wisconsin, Nebraska, I don't know. But Seamus, go ahead. Let's hear it.
That's a tough one. I'm gonna have to bring in the unfortunate quarterback situation. Definitely hope they're definitely okay and doing well, especially being young athletes. But due to being down to their 4th string, I'm gonna have to take Nebraska, and I'm gonna say 21-10. Nebraska wins it.
Okay, I like that.
So he goes low scoring with the Badgers, huh?
There you go.
I like
yeah,
it.
I think so.
No 4th string quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin has showed me the ability to win with Jack Cohn at quarterback in the past. So I think that Wisconsin, in the right set of circumstances, can win with a bag of fruit at quarterback. And I think that they're going to find a way to beat Nebraska this weekend.
I'm gonna go Nebraska, and I'm doing that because I want to see the storyline of Scott Frost beats a top 10 team in Wisconsin, but did he really beat a top 10 team? Because he came in with a lot of praise and expectations and hasn't lived up to them since leaving UCF, and it's like that kind of thing that I just think the storyline of you only beat Wisconsin, and it was because 1, 2, and 3 were all out. Like Seamus said, hopefully the quarterbacks, hopefully that they can have a speedy recovery. They are in good shape, so that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. But that's the most important thing here. But I do think that Nebraska is gonna be the top 10.
So?
And I think it's just going to add to the Scott Frost.
Again, put this empty
persona.
helmet, put a bag of fruit, put an iPhone charger at quarterback. Wisconsin can win the game.
You know what? It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to follow now, more than it probably would have if Wisconsin had a full deck of cards.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But they don't, and that's just. And the Big Ten, the reality situation is for those that are tuning in, if you test positive, now there are false positives, so you do have to do like a second or a third test. You're out for 21 days, which equals 3 weeks. So already,
of an 8-week season.
Already, he won't be back until the second half of the season.
Yeah.
So something to monitor moving forward. We're gonna go a little Group 5 action here. UCF at Houston.
Oh man.
Scott Frost's former employer, UCF at Houston.
That's a tough one. I don't know a whole lot about UCF this year.
Neither do we.
But I'm going to have to take UCF only because I know a friend that went there.
There you
so
go.
I'm going to give it to him. And I'm going to say it's going to be 24-21 UCF over Houston.
I like it. They got the scores for every game. That's big time.
Yeah.
That's big time. I think I like UCF in that game as well. I'm just going to ride with the team that has had a lot of success recently.
I would usually lean in a game like this to the home team, but there's just no real advantage there these days. So I'm going to go UCF as well right here. We all agreed on that, as well as LSU. We all agreed on. So down to 2 picks. And our last pick, our second to last pick before we get to Penn State, Ohio State, TCU at Baylor. Big 12 matchup.
Oh, I love the interconference play. I know Baylor, TCU definitely have some good programs in the past and everything. And you said TCU is at Baylor, right?
They are.
Okay. I'm going to take Baylor, definitely. I think maybe being at home. Now, I know the no crowd.
Or they might have a limited crowd.
Do they have a limited crowd?
Big Ten, none besides families, but everywhere else it's kind of like Big 12's had some pretty decent-sized crowds, actually.
You would think so, yeah.
There probably will be fans there, but not your typical environment, obviously.
Okay, yeah. Then I think if there's going to be limited capacity, I think definitely, when it's limited capacity, you can definitely still hear the fans. I'm going to take Baylor pretty convincingly. I'm going to say 35-17.
Okay.
Nice.
I think I like Baylor too. TCU has had some tests early on for sure. Both teams are struggling. I think I like Baylor in this one though.
I'm going to go Horned Frogs, TCU, just because I haven't seen Baylor play yet, and I saw TCU beat Texas earlier on in the year.
Yep.
I'm really just basing it off of that. I like Baylor's new coach replacing Matt Rule. Now, if Matt Rule was there, I'd absolutely take Baylor. Phenomenal coach.
They also wouldn't be 1 and 2 or
right.
whatever they
Phenomenal coach. The new coach there is Dave Aranda, came over from LSU. He was their defensive coordinator. But I just
defensive coordinator at LSU, you say?
Yeah, yep. So, I think TCU, just other than I've seen them play, and I kind of liked what I saw for that little time against Texas. I'm just gonna go with the Horned Frogs there.
Okay.
And so finally,
game of the week,
7:30 national telecast, ABC. Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler on the call, Maria Taylor on the sidelines. A whiteout unlike any other. Very limited fans there. Not your typical whiteout. Penn State coming off of a brutal loss to start the season. In a normal year, the game would have been played last week, and Penn State would be going to Indiana this week. Penn State 12.5-point underdogs. I thought it may be a little bit more. No Noah Kane. Obviously, we found that out today. No Jesse Luketa for the first half. Linebacker. It's going to be a tough one for them to pull off, but let's hear the scores and predictions.
All right, well, definitely the most important game of the week is always Penn State, but I know people are worried, especially after that frustrating loss to Indiana in overtime. But I think we got to definitely end on a positive note, so I'm going to take Penn State's going to come out and shock the Buckeyes.
Wow.
All right? It's going to be
Money line.
We're going
Yeah.
We're going to overtime.
Wow. Again.
Yeah. Just you watch. You'll be thinking of me when you're watching
Oh,
the game
God.
with the ending here. It's going to be Penn State wins. Ohio State's going to score a touchdown, kick the extra point. Penn State's going to score a touchdown, convert the two-pointer, and take it 41-40.
Wow.
Poetic justice.
That is awesome. And right back in the hunt for the
Yeah.
college football playoff.
There you go.
That would be look, if he's right, I mean,
Mathematically, they're still right in it.
There's no more guest pickers. That's it. It's over.
Yeah.
He wins the prize, whatever the prize may
you
be.
win the prize. Oh, man. I would take Ohio State. I would also take the points. I'm sorry, I would give the points. I think Ohio State will beat Penn State by more than the spread. I think it's probably a 28-point football game. 38-10 rings true for me. Listen, I know that they looked pedestrian for a little while against Nebraska in last week's game. Still have Justin Fields. I still have my concerns about the ability to defend in pass coverage, while also he's going to be able to scramble, get away from pressure, and I think Penn State's going to miss Micah Parsons more in this game than in really any other game, because in a game with athletes up here, you need your guys to be up here athletically, physically, mentally, and Micah was on that level. Penn State doesn't have 11 guys playing at that level. I think they're going to miss him dearly this weekend, and I think it's going to get away from him.
Yeah, at the beginning of before all of this, before 2020, really, I thought, this is going to be the game, national stage. Still is, whiteout. That is not happening, obviously. I thought no better time to, reassert yourself. But it's just been such a rough couple of, months with Penn State. Injuries, all that. Noah Kane. It just hasn't been a good year really for them. Even though it just started. But
recruiting, by the way.
Yeah, I mean,
I know we're not talking about this year's team.
You can't have visits and stuff. It's just really they've been snake bitten this year. There's no other way around it. I think that they're going to come out, and I hope they come out, looking fired up. It's going to be bring your own energy. It's not what you're used to in a whiteout game.
Today was BYOG.
Yeah,
bring your own guts.
Debo Swinney. But I think that I think Ohio State's gonna pull away late. I see about a 14-point victory, somewhere like a 31-17. Ohio State has weaknesses, but I just Penn State has more weaknesses and they're more glaring, and they have Justin Fields. Penn State really is lacking a superstar right now. I mean, yes, Pat Freiermuth, but it would certainly be nice to have Jair Brown, Noah Kane, and Micah Parsons in this game.
Yep, no doubt. Well, those are our picks there. Sorry to bring the mood down with the 28-point
Well,
loss.
I mean, hey, but Seamus, you heard him outright, so
outright.
overtime.
If that does happen, I'm never picking another game. That's the way I'm ending my career.
Go out on top.
Yep.
Love it. Well, Seamus, thanks so much for coming in, being part of the show. I know you're an avid follower of the show, so hopefully it was fun to come and be part of it in person here.
Oh yeah, always been a big fan of the show. Thanks for having me on, and it was a blast getting to do this with you guys tonight.
Hey, our pleasure. That's the Epilepsy Foundation, Eastern Pennsylvania. Seamus Morgan, a proud employee and advocate for this great organization. Thanks to him for telling his story. And go get involved. Donate. Go to the events. Become involved in your local communities. We can't stress that enough. Tyler, thanks for being here. Great show, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's always a pleasure. We joke about it that talking after a loss is a much more entertaining show than after a win. as much as we hate to lose. But the reality of the situation is this has been as freaky of a year it's been. This team has just been snake bitten, and I just the expectations I think were maybe a little too lofty at the beginning of the year, and Micah Parsons, Jair Brown, Noah Kane, take them out of the equation. You might start off 0-2, but there's still room to go up. And I think if you can finish the year strong and kind of look to springboard into next year, look, I'm not giving up on the season yet, but we might be having a different conversation next week.
Yeah, listen, if they had won that game, and then even if you lose to Ohio State, it's very reasonable if this team still goes 7-2, loses this weekend and wins out. It's entirely plausible. That's what I think. If you're a Penn State fan, that's what hurts the most about this past weekend is you could throw this game to the side down the road and say, you know what, they won by 1, they played terribly, but they were resilient, and geez, look how much they've grown as a team. This would not have hurt them. Now, hurts really badly.
Backs are up against the wall.
Backs are up against the wall. They have to win out. And honestly, if they win out, mathematically speaking, they will represent the Big Ten in the college football playoff, period.
They will, but that conversation likely changes during next week's show, unfortunately. But what are you going to do?
Guess we're going to have to watch on Saturday night and see what happens. Yep. That's what we can do. Seamus, thank you. Tyler, thank you. For our whole crew here at Bob Long Sports, Bob Long saying so long and good night.